was a really nice game, you know. I am very excited. It was really appealing. Better hope no one comes and ruins it for you. Someone some money. Someone some... maybe some alcohol. Nice restaurant you have here. Would it be bad if someone burned it down? Yeah. Ho ho ho. That would be bad. That's basically how they treat these games, right? They're like, oh, so you got a cool game over there. Would be bad if someone DI your game. So people love to ruin stuff that is popular. Even more so, it's a very fundamental idea that it's easier to break something down than to build something, right? So let me say immediately, I have actually been in a very similar situation to happening currently to Black Myth of Wukong. I've been in this video, guys, and it's gonna be an interesting video, I suppose, right? Let's get at it. First of all, to emphasize, of course, I haven't been through the exact same thing with them, right? And let me say it immediately, right? So Black Myth of Wukong is being extorted, it is claimed now, by SBI and similar stuff like that, right? And again, I can't confirm or deny that, right? I'm just gonna say that I think it's probably true, okay? Or at least something similar to it is probably true. And what I mean with that is that, like I said, right, I've been in a similar situation. Now, I have never, like, personally interacted with, you know, Sweet Baby Inc., for example, right, in the industry. But I have, of course, interacted with similar companies to them, right? Because obviously, and it's something I keep saying with this topic, with the whole Vogue stuff, whatever you call it, progressive, whatever, right? And a lot of people now are like, Sweet Baby Inc., the worst thing ever. But you have to remember, maybe actually the most important thing with Sweet Baby Inc., and now then this Wukong controversy, is remember that SBI is only one of many companies, right? So like I said, I have been in a similar situation, like Black Myth of Wukong, with another company in Europe, right? So there are many of these companies, and the whole idea of basically extorting people's money, of saying like, well, if you don't hire me as a consultant, I'm gonna say that you are a racist, or this is right. It's actually very, very common, okay? Extremely common. I mean, I'm from Sweden, goddammit, okay? In Sweden, this is an incredible common market. People are consulting, right? And they're gender consulting, or they're, you know, gay, LGBTQ, whatever, right? And again, I have no problem with that. You know, I love my otokunokos or whatever, right? But this is a very, very common thing. That people will go to a company, or the government, or whatever, but usually companies then, private companies, and tell them that if you don't hire me, I'm gonna say that you are X or Y or Z, right? It's incredibly common. Like I said again, though, I can't confirm exactly it's happening with just SBI or whatever, so on, right? With, of course, Black, you know, Myth of Wukong particularly, but that some Western companies have contacted Black Myth of Wukong and told them that if you don't allow us to, you know, help you diversify the game or whatever, right? And so on. If you don't do that, we're gonna tell everyone that you are a racist and this and that, blah, 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 blah. We're gonna say that you were mistreating your female co-workers, and we're gonna say there's some rumors about some haram, blah, 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 so on. Yeah, that is probably extremely true. I would be shocked if it hasn't happened, right? Again, I can't say exactly what company has done it, but that's happened to my company where I worked more than once. Exactly that thing, right? When they come to you and it's like, well, if you don't, yeah, we're gonna. That is incredibly common. It's actually incredibly common in the game industry and just, you know, IT industry in general, right? That you have these like consulting firms. I mean, if anything, most of these, like, you know, gender study consulting people in general, right? That's how they make their money, right? By basically extort people, like, you know, challenge them, saying that, well, if you don't do these things or what. And that's of course also why these many of these, like, you know, consulting firms like SBI and so on, why they want to be big on social media, right, is because they have a lot of leverage by saying that, oh, I have 1 million subscribers on social media and I have this and this connection, and I'm gonna write this thing against you and blah blah so on, right? So they also concerns have a lot with that, right? To have some kind of social media presence rather than maybe focus on doing a good job. So here's something happened to me, for example, in the game industry, which is quite similar to this whole, like, you know, extortion or money and so on, right? So a few years ago, I released a game then. It was the first game for a new game since I worked as a lead designer, right? This company now is bankrupt, so links below for that, as I made a video about that 2 weeks ago. But anyway, this game is released, right? And we talked to these, you know, major gaming sites, game magazines and so on, and they basically all told us that if we didn't pay them they would not review it. And I'm not saying like a good review or whatever. I'm not saying like a vocal review or whatever. I'm just saying that they were like, if you don't pay us like $1,000 there, $1,000 there, so on, if you don't pay us, we won't review the game. And then the owner of my company I work for, they refuse to pay them because they're idiots. They have no understanding of how this works, and it's a terrible idea because they did it on principle. They did it on lack of understanding what would happen, right? So they didn't pay them, and what happened then was that no one basically reviewed my game. And I mean it literally. That game wasn't reviewed in like any major magazine, even if one of the owners was a famous developer or so on, because no, they refused to pay all these different magazines, right? And they got completely blocked basically. And no one talked about them. And I mean literally, there wasn't in negative reviews either. There was just no one talked about it. So they ignored it. And of course, there are more than one factor why the media goes after this, and I've seen it. So for example, we saw how IGN, France again I believe it was, went after this thing, right? The Wukong is putting needle into the ear, and they say, oh, it's the wrong thing and so on. And of course they are wrong, and it's kind of funny seeing IGN, you know, going after a Chinese company, telling them that they know, you know, China more than they know and so on, right? Is it funny? Is it really interesting, right? That when they left those cultural appropriation, then it's completely fine, right? Yeah, because imagine the opposite. Imagine the opposite, right? You know, imagine if it's done towards like a black, I don't know. It's fine because Chinese people, of course, are very similar to white people, right? You know, look at my video with the whole adjacency of whiteness, right? But whatever, I digress. But it's very much the same thing. However, the general reason, of course, they're doing this, you know, why is the media so angry at like Wukong, Stellar Blade and so on, right? It actually isn't necessarily just because Stellar Blade got, you know, big titties or whatever, because obviously Wukong doesn't really have that. It's like a monkey guy, right? No, it is because of course, the left, or the Vogue, whatever you call it, for so many years have hated Japan, right? Now, I know this is China now, and I know Stellar Blade is Korea, but they obviously have a similar thing, which we see here, right? Is that Black Myth Wukong, the developers, are not willing, right, to actually pay out, right? The problem, of course, what they hate so much for, tourism-wise, again, is Asian people are too much white adjacent, but also, again, they're not paying out, right? These companies are not falling for that. Oh, well, if you don't give me some money, I'm gonna, like, you know, write some bad tweet about you. They don't care. In their culture, it's just ridiculous. They don't care about it, right? And that, of course, is a massive weakness then for these black people, right? I mean, it's obviously more than those two factors. It's only about that the culture is very similar to white people, so it's okay, like with Yasuke and so on. But really, that's a big reason, right? You know, for that matter, I haven't done a video about it, but I really love how they're playing like typical like black hip hop music. The Yasuke's fighting. It feels like so weird. It's like Ubisoft is like they racist both towards Japanese people and black people at the same time. It is beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm like, what is this thing? I didn't bother to make a video about it, but it's just so stupid. Yeah, right? Talking about extorting people. I want to say, this kid inspires me at all, right? I thought about earlier. This is a very common behavior in this business, so.
Put this stuff up to your higher ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're
Yeah, so that's basically like, if you don't agree with you, force them.
Go have a coffee with your marketing team.
Yeah, this is Portera. Terrify them, yeah. Very important. Terrify them, right? Terrify them, right? But I think that, like I said earlier, this is nothing new. I wasn't surprised at all, right? And I keep saying this thing, that you have to remember that Sweet Baby Inc. is just one of many of these companies. Now, I guess they might be the most successful company, perhaps, in this business, right? Because they have been working on, like, you know, Spider-Man 2, whatever. So they've been getting in a lot of these bigger games, I suppose. But, I mean, people were doing this business way before they were doing it, right? After all, Anita Sarkeesian is basically the most famous grifter of all time, right, in this sense, right? She basically would, you know, visit, for example, you know, EA DICE or whatever, right? And it was exactly that thing. And I mean, I have met her there at so it is exact that thing, right? You know, there's always been that thing where they used have this like, well, if you don't hire me, then you clearly are X thing, right? You know, if you don't hire me, then I will tell everyone that you didn't hire me because of this thing, right? It's a classic extortion strategy, but I do have to say though, and I mentioned it earlier, right? And I still stand by this point here, though. I necessarily, honestly, do I not believe in this 7 million black Wukong thing. So I keep saying, right? I wouldn't be surprised if she has done it or someone similar, right? with the whole extortion thing, because it's a very common strategy in the game industry to say that if you don't hire me, then I will tell everyone that you're istaphobe, whatever. You have to hire me and so on, right? I have to genderify stuff, so on. It wouldn't surprise me for a second, but I think it's very strange. 7 million is very, very high. I don't know, $7 million for me sounds extremely, extremely high, and there's no an exact number. So weird too, because usually it's always like, well, if you don't pay, you know, it's never really an exact number, so it does seem fake in that sense. That being said, though, we know already the IGN, how much attention for this thing and so on, right? So I think that it is true in a general sense that someone is like, well, if you don't pay me, we're gonna tell your game is stuff or whatever. But the 7 million SBI thing, that seems overblown. So I have to say that I'm a little bit, you have to always be skeptical on everything, right? And I am very skeptical on the whole $7 million thing, or 7 million whatever, because the numbers is so high, and like I said, I don't necessarily think the SBI would go after them. It's not really a thing, because SBI uses a lot of, like, you know, like Ubisoft and so on. She's used to work there, right? It's a lot of like networking, right? That's how they get into these big companies. I don't feel a company that directly go after them in this way. So it seems really weird. IGN, on the other hand, like I said, IGN, I could really see them being angry at them for something, and that's why they keep writing this really weird, like, IGN France again attacking them and so on. That can definitely be that IGN told them like a year ago, if you don't pay us, you know, we're gonna write shit about you all the time, right? I used to be friends with an IGN editor, so I know the inside of that. But seriously, right, that is something I can definitely see. So I'm a little bit torn on this thing, like I said, and that's also why I want to make the video, because I actually don't genuinely believe in the whole, like, the value of that, or how it happened or whatever. I think that is someone just baiting, right? Honestly, race baiting or whatever. But on the same time, I feel quite confident that something like this has happened to this company. Yeah, something very like happens to me, you know, not me being Chinese, man. Yeah, very likely it's happened to them, right? We keep seeing that thing. It's like, oh, if you don't threaten them, it's a very, very common strategy. I keep saying it, right? I've seen it many times in many games I've worked on. And like I said earlier, you have to also remember that it's not only, you know, like, oh, if you don't give us money, we will tell everyone that your game is isto or whatever, right? It's also that, like I said, in my example of, well, no one reviewed our game, right? Yeah, same thing. You basically, that game I'm talking about, like, no one reviewed it. It was like crazy, like, you know, these bigger magazines refused to do it, and then that kind of triples down to all of their contacts, and suddenly it was like 20 companies. You know, it's very much like that. Very much pendulum swings, like then no one does it immediately, right? Is Black Myth Wukong being extorted of these, like, Vogue DI companies? Yes, I think it's very true. I think they definitely happened. I'm not about 100% sure on that, but I'm 99% sure on that, right? Because, you know, they hate them. It's kind of funny, right, in a sad way, because they hate these Chinese and Korean and, of course, Japanese companies even more so perhaps than this, you know, typical Western companies, because, you know what I mean, like, they, as I mentioned in my, you know, Dear Asian People video, right? Yeah, these people are basically more white now, you know what I mean? Like, I think they see them as traitors, probably. They're like, how can you be so white if you're not white? I mean, something crazy like that, I don't know, but they really hate them, right? Combining that with the, like, for example, Japanese companies not really, you know, changing, right? Not really falling for this pressure from the Vokis or whatever, right? Not really falling for it. Fortunately, some of them do, you've seen that, right? Some of them do, but most of them doesn't, right? Except with the whole Yasuke thing, most Japanese are like, F this shit, yeah, they don't fall for it, and that makes them angry, right? Because they want to convert them to their side. So I think that they have a really massive hate boner for, yeah, like Chinese, Korean, and Japanese games, even more so the typical, you know, evil white man games, you know? Yeah, games I make, yeah, even more, but it's interesting. But I don't think it's a big factor to it. And then you combine that with the general practice, as you mentioned, right? The whole practice of just like, well, you know, threaten them, extort them, pressure them, you know. And then, of course, they will try to do that. So I am very convinced that it happened. Lastly, there is a third factor, though, I think. And that is the classic thing that these people doesn't want to be gamers, right? They aren't actually gamers. You have to also remember that almost everyone working on in the, like, the gaming journalist in the left, or left, super left leaning, fall asleep, yeah, the super left leaning is very, very very, very known, And I think that you have to remember that, for example, when you see Elden Ring is up next week, right? And of course, you know, Black Myth Wukong, a similar game, right? You have to remember that they hate Elden Ring, right? They hate Elden Ring because these game journalists aren't real gamers. They hate hard games, right? They really hate hard games. So, these game journals has never liked Elden Ring or Sekiro or Dark Souls or Neo or whatever, right? They hate those games, right? If, for example, compare Neo then, they hated Neo. They defend, you know, Assassin's Creed Yasuke, right? Because Assassin's Creed are bullshit easy games. Yeah, they are brain-dead Ubisoft games, right? Neo is a 100 times harder game. I mean, I would say Neo is harder than Dark Souls. Yeah, Neo is very, very hard when it comes to so on. Not the hardest game ever, but it's hard, right? They hate those games, right? So I think that's a fact you have to remember too. That these people, SBI or whatever, Roku, so on the left, media, whatever, yeah, they hate this game. They want, again, they want this game to fail, right? Because they don't want these like single player, immersive, hard games, like skill issue games. They don't want them to succeed, you know. They want the games that fail. They hate the Elden Ring, and then this obviously the Elden Ring inspired game, right? Or whatever. They hate these games are popular. They hate that. Yeah, it's like the worst genre for them. They want the games to be, you know, visual novels, narrative novels, right? Or really, really brain-dead multiplayer games. They don't want hardcore single player games. Like, I'm sure they're gonna have hard attacks. I bet you my money that they're gonna have a bunch of attacks soon on Elden Ring. Even if Elden Ring is popular, here comes the Shadow Tree, you know, they're gonna, Earth Tree, they're gonna certainly have some weird takes on that, right, you know. Oh, well, she's doing the boss again, you know what I mean? It's gonna be some weird takes on that game coming, probably not next week. I know the game's out in a week from now, I think exactly a week from now, yeah. But I don't think it's gonna be that hardcore, probably like 2 weeks from now. Like, you know, like after the first weekend, and then this so-called game expert has failed in the game, then they're gonna say that, well, I'm cheating and that's cool because I'm a cool dude, or something like that. And the game's UX is terrible! Like I said in the other video, you know, I know the guy that complained about the UX. I know him personally, yeah, I work for this guy. They complain about the UX, right? Because he's a guy in Ubisoft in Stockholm, yeah, I know him. I met him more than once. He used to work next door to him in Stockholm. So, I know him very well. Jesus Christ, man. That was so embarrassing. I was like, my God. Oh, please about the Anyways, if you guys subscribe, press the like button, and of course, I'm gonna make some Elden videos. And hopefully, I'm getting the Creator Edition in time. Because I want that freaking statue. But I'm happy to, of course, play Elden Ring soon, guys. It's gonna be the next game I'll probably stream on the channel. Because, you know, I love those. I love those games, yeah. So you guys have a great day.